Hello and welcome to Own Your Divine Light show. I am Janet Miller and I invite you to meet a visionary teacher and shamanic guide to thousands of people over the last 35 years. Linda Starwolf, who prefers to be known as Starwolf, started out as a therapist in the mental health and addictions fields in the 1980s. Starwolf is a nationally certified drug and alcohol counselor who derives from her personal experience of recovery from addiction. The author of several personal books. Starwolf is the creator of Shamanic Breathwork and the founder of Venus Rising Association for Transformation, a nonprofit organization, and founder and president of Venus Rising University for Shamanic Psycho-Spiritual Studies. Starwolf is the co-founder of the Shamanic Mystery Tours and takes spiritual seekers all over the world to explore sacred shamanic sites. Welcome, Starwolf. It's such an honor to have you here. Star, you have been in this field for 35 years, and I would love to know how you started out in this road to helping people. What is your story to helping them in the mental health and addictions field?
Well, truth be known, I started helping people when I was a little girl, so it's actually longer than 35 years.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is I think that, this is more of a little bit of more of an esoteric answer. But I just believe some of us are born onto the planet and that we're born, maybe I believe all of us actually are born with a sacred purpose. And that some of us really are here to help transform the planet, transform ourselves and the planet. And I remember being a little girl and feeling older than my parents, And of course, they were in their young 20s, so they weren't much older than me. But I feel like that I've always kind of been awakened that way, and wanted to see things more harmonious, wanted to bring more love to the world, wanted to bring more healing to the world. And, beginning with my own family. As an adolescent, I was a child of the 60s. And so everybody wanted to change the world. And, and a lot of what we're seeing resurface right now on the spiral path at another octave, women's rights, gays' rights, Black rights, everybody, religious rights, all the rights, really they're all human rights. And now not only human rights, you see places where they're saying, they're giving now forest rights and water rights, nature rights, animal rights. So, the rights of everything that's alive to be fully alive and valued. And so that was very much a part that took a deep-seated connection as an adolescent in the 60s, and that whole movement, and watching all of that coming in on the black and white TV, and then the color TV that transitioned into color.
Well,
all of that, and then in my 20s, really acknowledging that even with all my desire to change and heal the world, I needed to start here first.
Yes.
That I was looking out here. And as consciousness began to come in more, and I started doing more things like yoga and meditation, and started studying different things with Native Americans and different teachings from around the world, different Buddhist teachings, stepping out, and I did that in my teens too, but really stepping out of, my Baptist background, as a little girl. And then I married a man and became a Catholic, and then I stepped out of that and became a Buddhist, So as I was exploring all of that and just becoming aware, trying to find the path, right? The path. And, finally, in my late 20s, really saying about the first Saturn return when I was 29, I thought, there is no right path. There's only my path, and every one of us has a path. And maybe we collect and we join together, as a Buddhist or a Christian, or as a shaman, or as a nature lover, or whatever it might be. But the path for all of us is individual. And that path really is our own individual healing and transformation. So I really formalized that. I began formalizing that in my 20s as a counselor, a mental health counselor. I went on to become an addiction specialist in my 30s. And in my mid-30s, I really dove headlong into more alternative. It's called alternative, but I really think it's more ancient
Yes.
wisdom,
Yes.
right? What psychology really was in the beginning, the study of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home. I came home to a deeper healing within myself, and I came home to a deeper healing. And this is not to criticize the addictions or mental health fields, but I came home to what I believe is a deeper healing of what the original roots of those systems were. And
Sure.
as that happened, because I started into those fields like in my young 20s, now I'm in my mid 30s, so I already have a long history of working in that field and doing my own inner work.
Mm.
So fully by the end of my 30s, I was full on into the sacred healing power of the breath and natural altered states as part of our birthright, to learn how to actually expand into greater consciousness to get the bigger picture of why we're here, and then bring that back, and as we spoke earlier, to ground it in this dimension. So really from there until now, which has been that next 35 years or so, has been my attempt to do something which I call embody shamanic consciousness in everyday living. So that's kind of a long, little bit of a long answer, but it's very comprehensive for me to speak into that. I believe that some of us are just naturally born, and maybe all of us, but some of us are just naturally born here to be healers and transformers, starting with ourselves and then for the world, specifically, I think, at this time.
Yes, and that's so beautiful that you were definitely a way shower. I mean, you were so awakened even as a young child, and you knew that you had this path. You were constantly following your path and constantly questioning. So you were very early, a seeker, a huge seeker, and you just kept going. And then you developed your own breath work. I mean, that's pretty amazing in your 30s to go there and find that. You went so deep inside that you could actually find the truth of what you needed to bring forth. And that's pretty big in your 30s, because I know in my 30s, I was at the end of my 30s is when my whole life changed, my 39th year. And I totally changed what my whole trajectory, as they say. And I saw myself going down a different road. I was in the addictions road, and I straightened myself out and I got sober, and I've been sober 26. This will be my 27th year. So
congratulations.
Thank you. And so I do understand what you're saying about the road. The addiction road is a different world than what your work was. And for me, going into 12-step was very helpful. And because it led to my spiritual path. It was my door opener to my spiritual path, which was a healer. I needed to be a healer. And that was what I knew was my passion once I found it. And as you found yours with the breath work, I mean, and then you just kept going. You kept trying different religions. I mean, that's so beautiful. I was Catholic. I grew up Catholic, but never felt connected to it. And I married a Jewish guy. And my kids were raised Jewish because at the time I said, well, I want them to have a foundation of something else is here besides them. There's something they have to look at besides them. And so that's how I looked at it in those days. Well, I was never pressured to have to be anything else but who I am. Thank goodness. My husband's very open that way. And I said, it doesn't matter to me which way we raise our children. And so we raised them Jewish, and I was fine. I didn't find Catholicism at all enlightening. I felt it was very restrictive and very narrow and very guilt-ridden. And I just said, that's enough. I can't deal with that anymore anyway. And now I say I'm spiritual like you. And, search is such a gift to have that search, isn't it? It's such a gift.
Definitely. And, you and I are definitely sisters, because I have 36 years sobriety.
Congratulations.
And one of my main spiritual awakenings was the 12 steps.
Yes.
And today, still, when I find myself in a place of trying to control everyone and everything around me,
which we can do
several times a day.
Yes.
Especially the politics of the world. But anyway, I lift my arms to the heavens, and I go to my knees. I just humbly and open-heartedly say, I surrender.
Mm.
And, great mystery,
Yes.
great spirit.
Mm.
I asked humbly to
Mm-hmm.
help me remember who I am, why I'm here, that I
Yes.
can't change anyone or anything but me.
Yes.
And that's all. I am not anybody else's higher power.
Yep.
And what I can do is I can be an example and a way shower.
Mm.
And so when I say I'm a healer, I'm a transformer, I'm shamanic or whatever, I'm really giving more of a descriptor, like an adjective.
Sure.
I'm not locating myself as I am a shaman. Some people do that. That's fine.
But
That's not the way I do it.
it's part of you. It's all your aspects of you.
Part of me. That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is important. I mean, and it's good to, because shamanism to me is really a core. It's like such a core part of learning to respect yourself and the earth. I mean, it's so important to have that earth connection and to really respect the land and the people and how we've disconnected from it so much. That's our whole issue with our population and our civilization, and how we learned was that we disconnected so much from it, and the Native Americans never did, and they always stayed pretty much. I mean, nobody's perfect there either, but many of the elders stayed connected. Like, I know you had an amazing elder in your life who named you, and I'd love to hear the story of how you got your name. It sounded fascinating to me.
Well, it was fascinating. It was another game changer for me. I don't even like to use the word the game, but let's just put it, it was just like, because, getting sober at 29 and
39. Yeah.
And saying, okay, it's this or do or die time, to really face it. I can't heal or to help people transform. Not really, even though I've already been in the mental health for over 9 years. I can't really do the work I'm here to do unless I'm walking my talk, unless I'm clean, unless I'm clean body, mind, and spirit. And so that was a huge game changer. Mm-hmm. And then about 10 years later, the next really big game changer, well, right prior to meeting Grandmother Twyla, let me mention that I met someone named Jacqueline Small at the Psyche Institute, and she was doing breath work with Stan Groff and Christina Groff with holotropic breath work. So that was a huge game changer. Sure. And that really led me to go deeper into my interest already and my studies with shamanism and, not only Native American, but other indigenous cultures and that sort of thing. So I was working with a woman who was a dear friend who's Cherokee. Mm-hmm. We're still friends. She lives in New York, and her name is Teresa, and she was Cherokee, and I'm not going to mention her last name because she's a sister in recovery too. Mm-hmm. And she had helped me. I had helped her get sober. Mm-hmm. And then she decided to help me go deeper with my spirituality. Wow. And introduced me to the Sweat Lodge and to many different ceremonies and things. And she helped me get in touch with a core piece about my grandmother dying when I was 12 and how it took me down the path of addiction. After that, I kind of lost faith at 12, 13 years old. So often it seems like people go through these initiations around 12 or 13. Something 14. Happens.
14.
It seems like it's, working in this field, almost always somewhere between about 11 and 14, people have this travesty and there happens in their life, and things happen. So she said to me, this is still an unhealed piece for you, even though you've come all this way, you've done all these things. And she said, I think that you need a grandmother. You need to call in a grandmother, either living or in the spirit world or whatever. So she gave me a ceremony, and this ceremony I was to practice every day for 30 days and go in kind of a natural altered state. And we were breathing and doing different things, smudging and going in on a journey. And every day I would do this journey, and with just the intent of opening myself for grandmother to come to me from wherever. And it seems to me it might have been about the third weekend or something, because I was getting a little impatient and a little discouraged. Yep. And I think I was getting a little bored.
Yeah.
I was lying down on the floor, and back then it was tapes, and I taped her like on the boom box, Yep. So I put it on play, and I'm listening to her voice take me through this, and I went to sleep, or so I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I knew, I was in a lucid dream, or so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
where I was sitting on a floor in like an underground kiva, and I had my head on someone's lap, and I couldn't see them, but they were stroking my head, and they just said, "Ah, my gentle wolf, my gentle star wolf." And I
Wow.
thought, well, who is saying this? And first of all, who's Starwolf? You know? And they said, gentle Starwolf, like it was me. And I looked up, and there was this beautiful elder with this solid white hair and these sparkly eyes and this mischievous smile. And it was just this beautiful face. And I looked into her eyes, and my heart just leapt. And I thought, who is this? You know? And I didn't know her name. And she looked at me, and she just smiled. She said, Starwolf. So I thought maybe she was Starwolf.
Okay.
And then I thought, oh, this isn't really happening. This is all in my mind. And at that moment, it all dissolved.
Wow.
So I came out of it, and I was like, no, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I called Teresa, and I told her what happened. She said, well, I think, you know, that this is a grandmother for you. And she said, so she's either in this world or another world. It doesn't really matter. She said, but, you know, I believe that's a spirit name for you. And I said, oh, I could never, you know, go by that name. And she said, well, just hold it close and just see what happens. So over the next few years, it took a while because this is prior to Google, internet, computers, cell phones, you know, this is still corded phones, honey.
Right, right. I remember the princess phones and all those. Oh, absolutely.
Corded telephones. I think we were just beginning to get those machines, you know, where you could hit the button and hear what people had left messages for you.
Right. Message machines. Yep.
Yeah, it's showing our ages a little bit.
Yes.
But anyway, so I didn't know how to even think about finding her. I was still working at the treatment center in Kentucky, and my son was in high school. I was married to someone I'm not married to now, had a whole different life, and I had no idea. You know, I was feeling really fortunate that I was at the mental health center let me off 6 times a year to go do these breath workshops where I was doing training, you know, because they didn't believe in it at all, but they didn't want to lose me, so they let me go do that. And to cut a long story short, through many synchronicities, I was able to discern that this woman might actually exist, and that she might be somebody named Twyla Niche, and that she might be the Wolf Clan grandmother in Seneca territory, you know, on the Cattaraugus Indian Reservation. I was finding things out. Things were, you know, lining up synchronistically in ways that you know how that happens. So I've written about this in more depth. It's a longer story. And so one day I just picked up the phone and dialed long distance information. And I did Cattaraugus Indian Reservation. That's what it's called. And I just said, could you give me the phone number for Twyla Niche? And they said, there's not a Twyla, but there's a T Niche. And they said, do you want that number? And I said, yes. And then I called the number. And when I called the number, it was like an old phone. And this woman answered, and I could just tell by her voice she was very young. And I said, is grandmother Twyla Niche there? And she said, who's calling? And for the first time in my life, really, I said it out loud to another person other than Teresa. I said, Starwolf. And she said, okay. And she said, just a moment. She was gone for like 5 minutes, and I thought maybe she'd hung up. I thought, oh my goodness, you know, the bill is running up. Like, you know, on the long distance, used to think about that, right?
Yeah.
And so then a few minutes later, I hear us clunking around, and she comes back, and she said, Graham wants to know when you're coming.
Oh.
And I said, what do you mean? She said, she wants to know when you're coming.
Oh boy.
And I said, where? And she said, to the reservation. And I said, well, can I talk to her? She said, yes, when you come.
Okay.
And I said, okay. Well, and anyway, I gave some excuses and work and this and that, and I'd have to get vacation. Maybe I could come the next year. She said, no, she wants you to come in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
So I moved heaven and earth, and I got there. But the directions were not very good. I'm out on the reservation, driving around in a car with this color hair, this color eyes on a reservation. No one else looked like me. They didn't seem happy to see me.
Yeah.
Driving around. And then I finally thought that I might locate this house way back off the road with these cornfields around it, big old trees and big old house, kind of, you know, older home back there. Looks like it's been built on 4 or 5 times. And I drove up that driveway and I thought, and it said no trespassing. I thought it's either her or I'll be shot. You know,
right, right.
So I drove up there and, you know, when I got out of the car and around to the back of the house, there was a porch and the door opened and this woman stepped out and she was probably about maybe 50 feet from me. And she started walking towards me and I literally almost passed out.
Wow.
Because it was the woman of my vision. And as she walked towards me and she got really close to me and she just started smiling. And she was, if I have to look down, you're short. So I'm 5'3". I'm looking down at her. That's how short she was.
Oh my goodness.
But she felt huge. Her
right.
aura was huge. Like you were talking about the presence earlier. And she stood in front of me and she looked at me and, you know, and she just said to me, I don't remember, she took my shoulders. It felt like she was shaking me, but she said to me, I gave you a name. Yeah. What is your name? And I just said, Starwolf. And she said, that's right. And I just stood there for a moment. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if she knew my name, why didn't she just say it? You know, because I thought that. And then she smiled. I didn't say it, but she looked at me, she said, and I gave you that name in an underground kiva. Just to make sure that I knew that she knew, you know. And then I felt like I was going to pass out. She said, so come on in and let's get to work. And that was the beginning of our relationship. So, and she passed in 2007, I believe it was. She was 94 years young, I like to say, and was really, you know, she was really there, you know, really until the end almost of her life. You know, she was still a present person, and she's very present in my psyche and as an ancestor spirit guiding me from the other side.
So how many years were you with her completely? How many years did you stay with her?
It was about, I think it was probably close to 10 years that she was a part of my life and I was a part of her life. And one of the beautiful things about it is that Graham never would answer the phone.
Right.
She just didn't. You know, people would call her or something. She always had something. But I would call and she would answer the phone.
Oh my.
And she would answer the phone, not like hello. She would say, hello, Starwolf.
Oh wow.
There's no way for her to know at that time. There was nothing that came up on your phone, on a corded phone that told you.
Yeah, psychological.
And I would say, how did you know it was me? And she said, well, I sent you a message to call me.
How beautiful. That's incredible. The power of that woman. She was huge. Such ancient
She was huge. She affected thousands and thousands and thousands. Today, she would affect millions and millions.
I believe
you know, with the internet. But she affected thousands and thousands of people by word of mouth around the world. And there are so many people where I go to a bookstore. You know, I do a lot of book signings and travel, and I'll go, and to this day, there'll be somebody in the crowd almost every single time will go, I know Grandmother Twyla. You know.
How that is really beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Wow. That's you followed what you needed to follow. You listened, and that's so important because many people don't. You could have just blown that all off and said, you know what, this is not a big deal. This is crazy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you said, no, this is important. You knew in your soul, you just knew that this is something you had to follow. Oh my goodness, how beautiful. How beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. She really put me on the path of the wolf tribe or the wolf clan, which is really a very Aquarian vision, is that we're not just singular, that we are a tribe, we're a pack, you know, the whole world is, but that the wolf clan specifically is a clan of teachers, philosophers, visionaries, way showers, and they're very Aquarian in that way. They consider everyone and everything, it's not about me, it's about we, it's about us. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if it's not good for the pack, then it's not good just for the leader, so to speak, or the teacher. It must be for every member of the pack. It has to be viable. It has to be life-giving.
That's such new thinking. I mean, this is where we want to go. This is the actual heaven on earth where working to create, right? I mean,
Yeah.
working to care about each other, because we're all one. And when we know we're all one, then we know that we can, when you hurt someone or you say something in the wrong way to someone, you're really saying it to yourself. So it's that genuine, it's that real. And that's what she was teaching you, and you've already gotten that from her, which is so beautiful. Wow.
She was a revolutionary herself. I just speak this last piece about her, but that, you know, at this time on the earth, when I feel like that we as a planet, we're struggling with kind of the difference between me and we, and feeling like we have to choose. So we're struggling between kind of like the United States or the world, you know, or, you know, citizens and immigrants, or all the different things that we're struggling with, you know, us and them sort of thing. And, you know, racism is an example of that, and, you know, gender preference, and, you know, all of those identities, all those things. And there's a whole way that we're divided, and it's showing up hugely externally, of course, not only in the United States, but all around the world, but it's really in all of us. And we're trying to figure out, like, how to really let our own light shine, how to be really proud of who we are, what we stand for, and what we, you know, what we fought for. Or maybe my father was a war veteran, you know, from the Korean War, and fought active duty, what we fought for, all those kinds of things. And at the same time, to embody this global, and maybe beyond global, this cosmic universal laws of where what all major religions say at their heart, that we're all brothers and sisters, that every child, regardless of whether they're legal or illegal or planned or unplanned, or every child that's born into this world has a right to be here, and is deserves to have food and safety and nurturing and love and support, and supported to become what that being can be on this planet, because that being will be responsible for the planet.
Yes.
You know, and what happens to nature and the earth. And so it can't just be in my neighborhood or yours or my state or my country or my continent, you know, not if we're thinking in I don't even want to say higher consciousness, because that kind of lifts us off the earth. I want to say greater consciousness, greater good for all of us. And that's really shamanic thinking.
Yes. Planetary. I'm thinking planetary, you know, when you talk about, like, you believe in there are other beings in the world, in the universe, which I totally do. They don't talk about their country, because there isn't any. It's a planet.
Right.
It's a planet, and we're a planet, and we are a whole group of people, even though we have diverse languages and customs. When you really get to the foundation, we're all the same. We all want the same for each other, our family, our children. We all want the same. And it's just, it's something I think that Americans are grappling with as well. And every country is, to say, well, what is it we, like you're saying, exactly, what do we want? What do we really want in our life? And I think that things in this that are in our face right now is giving us the choice. This is our choices now. You have a time to make a choice.
Yes.
Do you want this or that? This is what it looks like this way, and this is what it looks like that way. We're actually seeing it in reality now, which is so amazing. If you really step back and look at that, we're seeing it right in our face. We're getting a choice. Do you
it's like a time limited offer. Time limited
offer. Yeah, it's true.
The expiration date on this offer, you know, because all goes bad. That's true.
Wow.
You know, it's really true. And, you know, and just in the past few years, I mean, I've traveled a lot my whole life, but just in the past few years, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Egypt, you know, I've been to Bali, I've been to Texas, well, Texas is its own place.
It sure is. Its own country.
To Mexico, I've been to Peru, Bermuda, Romania, and other places. But every place, oh my goodness. Anyway, I don't know what happened there.
What happened?
I lost you on the screen. Can you still see me?
Yes, I can. Yes. Okay. You're perfectly clear, so don't worry.
I'm still clear? Okay. So if you can still see me, that's great.
See.
Okay. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying, it seems to me that all the places I've been, the people I've met in those places, whenever I've sat down and talked to anyone, whether it's a shaman in that country or just someone I meet in, that's a citizen of that country, and we're happen to be on a bus together or sitting to next to each other somewhere. Or waiting in line. I'm thinking of being in Bali and being like the only person with blonde hair and blue eyes in this, by accident really, that I ended up at a temple by accident when they were in a ritual and that's normally open to the public. But myself and my partner ended up in that water with about 1,000 people. And, we didn't have any offerings to offer or anything as we were all getting ready to be what we would call baptized under these 7 different waterways. And the people, we didn't speak the language, but we spoke the language of the heart. And they gave us, people started handing us some of their offerings and pointing and giving us direction and embracing us, children, elders, and so no matter where I've gone, I have not experienced, whether it's been in countries where it was predominantly Christian or Buddhist or Islamic or whatever it might be, Hindu. I haven't experienced any kind of hostility coming towards me. And if they speak English, because I really don't speak any other languages except, just the language of love, there's always so welcoming and, oh, tell us more. And, we love Americans and, America's a beautiful place. And so, it's just so interesting to me how the world has received me. And, versus what sometimes people who are maybe a little more sheltered and haven't been out in the world as much, or even if they do, they go and stay on a boat with everybody that's, the same color as them or whatever.
Yes.
And until you get there and meet just the people, world leaders are different than the people in the street, you know. So it's the same everywhere I've been. There's not been any, you might think it would be different, in Egypt or someplace else, but it's not in my world anyway.
I understand that because my husband and I went to Cambodia, Vietnam with a spiritual mentor of mine. And so we did not go up the mountain because it was just not working for us. So we stayed below, and all these people were in this little shop, and he had this grandmother and grandfather coming over to us. And all of a sudden my husband decided to show them bull riding. So he put on his phone and he showed them bull riding, and the whole area showed up in front of us, and they were just fascinated, and they were like, oh my goodness. And they were so sweet. The kids were looking, everyone's like, look, nobody spoke the language, but they were all rushing over, and it was rural, very rural. And it was just so beautiful that we just could be there with the people and just share that. And they were just fascinated. They thought it was amazing, and it was without any language or whatever. And they were just very kind, and they gave them a beer, and, beer was like $1. I mean, seriously, it was crazy, and I understand what you're saying. It's so important to be amongst people of the world. When you travel, your whole world opens up.
Completely.
Travelers. And you change your whole outlook on the world. You just see people so differently. It's a gift that we can do that. I mean, it really is. So the other thing I want to ask you, yes, go ahead.
I love taking people. I was just going to say, I take people on trips around the world. We had a group of 48 people from about 15 different countries in Bali this year. And earlier this year, well, not this year, it was the end of December and then the first part of the year. And prior to that, we had a beautiful group. I think it was about 30 people in Peru. And I love taking people to other places in the world and introducing them to the shamans there, introducing them to the folks that live there, the school children that live there, the sacred sites, and to really allowing people to have, an experience of the mysteries, but also of the culture and the people that are there, because that is part of the mystery as well.
Yes. Well, I'm going to have to look into your tours, your groups. It sounds fascinating because I've been to Machu Picchu, but it was in 1977.
Yeah.
They still called it a 7th wonder of the world.
Yeah.
And they don't even say that anymore.
No, it's so beautiful. And I've been there several times, but they only used to let a certain amount of people there, and now it's kind of inundated, but it's
Yeah.
still beautiful and amazing. We had the woman that I go with is Vera Lopez, and Vera and I actually just got a new book contract
Oh, wow.
to write a book on the shamanic mysteries of Peru. So that'll be the next book that comes out that I'm a co-author on, probably next summer. Not this summer, but summer.
Wow. So if you go, are you going to go to Peru again at all? Do you have plans to
Oh
go?
yeah, we'll go again. But I'm going to Egypt again first. Right now. I've got Vera and I are actually taking some people to the Avalonian Mysteries in England, and the end of September of this year. And then we're going to we have another tag-on trip if people want to go. We're going to go do the mysteries with Magdalene, the Magdalene Mysteries in France. So that's the England and France, and then I'm going back to Bali, and then I'm going to Egypt, and then probably after that, Peru.
So is your trip full in September?
No, the England trip is almost full. The France trip still has several openings. We haven't done a lot of advertising on it. We were going to let all of our groups that have gone with us before know, and we're just beginning to advertise it. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you.
Sounds really interesting, because I that is an area I need to go to again. I haven't been to all those places yet, and it's really on my list. Totally on my list.
It's a beautiful journey to dive into I think, at least for me, the Avalonian Mysteries, which are really about the Holy Grail and what we're in search of, I think, right now, or at least what I'm in search of within myself and the world, and how that interfaces with the mysteries of the Magdalene.
Oh, the Magdalene. I belong to a group called the Magdalene Gathering.
Oh, I love it.
I know.
We really are sisters, aren't we?
Yes. I've been doing this for 10 years, and it's just such a...
How beautiful.
It is beautiful. The woman who runs it is in Connecticut, and she goes around a lot of New England. She goes around the U.S., but she's written some books on Mary Magdalene. Gloria Amendola. Yeah.
I don't know Gloria,
but
I'll have to look her up.
She's very, Amendola, just like Amendola, D-O-L-A. She's very wonderful, and she's channeling Mary Magdalene all the time. She's very connected. Beautiful work she does, really beautiful work. But thank you. I mean, this is beautiful information for anyone listening that they want to participate in your tours. I mean, I definitely am interested.
Oh, so great. I look forward to connecting with you about that.
Amazing. So I know there's something now, ship. What does ship mean? You have 6 initiations of ship. We haven't gone to that. So I know you talked about your breath work and the founder, Stan Groff, and then you created your shamanic breath work through that. Do you want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, let me just say a little bit that, I started practicing because in my 20s I read Paramahansa Yogananda. And I think a lot of people read that, his book on the, healing and breathing. And I started doing breathing exercises, became very interested in Eastern philosophy because the Beatles were interested in Eastern philosophy.
Of course.
And, meditation and transcendental meditation, we always called it TM, and all those kinds of things, really learning about crystals and herbs and all the things that, that prior to that, I'd never even heard people really even talk about. And so the breath was really one of the biggest things that I noticed, that because I, as a teenager, I struggled with breathing. I had anxiety, I had allergies, those kinds of things.
Sure.
So the breathing was very important to me. It sounds funny to say that, but it's just true. Breathing was very important to me.
Sense, especially with those kind of allergies. Yeah.
And then breathing with meditation, you learn to breathe with meditation. And when you did yoga, you learned about breathing.
Yes.
I did a lot of guided imagery. I remember Emmett Miller did all those guided imageries, and Shakti Gawain, bless her, who passed this past year. And all those breathing to go into this other place inside of ourselves. And so oftentimes people don't know there's another place inside themselves. And then I had met a woman when I was 28 actually, named Jackie Small, and she had Yosaika Institute, and she's in her 80s now, and she's retired from her institute. But at that time, she invited me to come and do something called holotropic breathwork. And so I went to do holotropic breath work with Jacqueline Small and Stan Groff, who created holotropic breath work. And I did several sessions over about a year, year and a half with them. And then Jacqueline started doing something else. She started taking that breath work, but she also started doing what she called a lot of integrative techniques. Because one of my concerns with some of what we were doing is I felt, because in my 60s, I experienced in my 60s, when I say the 60s, the 1960s,
Yes.
I said I did field research,
Okay.
with psychedelics.
Okay.
And left me pretty blown out. I had beautiful visions, but couldn't really make sense of them once I came back to this dimension. So in doing the breath work, it felt to me there needed to be more integration. So she named her breath work integrative breath work. And I studied intensely with integrative breath work. And I actually became an integrative breathwork facilitator and was one of her lead trainers for several years. And what we did with integrative is we started doing things like, because a lot of us were therapists, we started using our therapy techniques not to diminish the bigger experience, but to integrate it, which was fabulous. And then as I became more connected to grandmother Twyla, as I became more connected to Native American studies and shamanic studies, I began to meet shamans who were using the breath to really go deeply into the upper worlds, the lower worlds, and to really go into many different parallel universes. And so my world kept getting bigger. And at that time, I started doing shamanism and breath work. That's the main things that I was doing and beginning to teach my students. And it just was a natural evolution for me to birth 23 years ago, shamanic breath work. So I birthed it, and I fully owned that it was, that I had this lineage from these shamans, from these teachers, from these breathwork facilitators and institutes. But this was something that I was giving birth to, and that I was integrating all these. I was really integrating recovery, discovery, all my psychedelic experience, and I had death and rebirth experiences. So I mean literally. So I was integrating that. I was also integrating all the different varieties of breath work I had done, and integrating all of the shamanic processes that I had learned. And so I birthed shamanic breath work, and it took off. And I will say that shamanic breath work is more, it's interesting to me that it's in this huge growth spurt right now. The first few years it did well, but compared to where it was then and it is now, we're in many countries around the world. There's not a day that goes by that I don't hear from people, and my team hears from people who are interested in the training. Every day it happens. And we have many people teaching various levels, which brings us to SHIP.
Okay.
SHIP is Shamanic Healing Initiatory Process.
Okay.
So I like it that it's a ship. It sets sail into uncharted waters, to unknown territory where we can't see the land anymore. We have to let go and become untethered and go out into that vast sea of consciousness. And the shamanic part is that we go through initiations. And here's something that I've been saying for a while. And at first, some people are kind of like raising their eyebrows, like, really, isn't that just life? And what I've said is the most shamanic thing in life is not necessarily going into a sweat lodge or taking a plant medicine. The most shamanic thing in life is living it.
Yeah.
The most shamanic thing in life is just waking up.
Yes.
It's just waking up and deciding to step out of the rat race. No offense against rats. Everything has a purpose. But stepping out of the rat race and learning more about who we are and the greater consciousness, and then looking to see how we can create that in everyday life in a very sane and sober manner, where it's practical, whether it's user-friendly, where it's not something you do just because you go away to a workshop or a ceremony.
Absolutely.
I tell people every day, I'm shamanic 24/7. This is not just a weekend or when you see me at a workshop or at a training. This is the way I live my life every day,
Ooh, beautiful. Yeah.
And so the ship processes take you through 6 very specific initiations. I'll just name them quickly. The first is getting off the linear path and also off the circular path and onto the spiral path. That we're
Mm.
always changing and growing at
Mm.
different octaves, even if we're dealing with some of the same material. We see it from a different perspective, or we
Sure.
have the opportunity
Oh,
to
yeah.
grow. Yeah. The second thing is, guess what? Family of origin. And people go, well, isn't that, some people said, well, that's therapy. I don't want to do therapy. And I'm like, if you don't want to do therapy, if you don't want to deal with your family of origin, you cannot be shamanic.
Right. Right.
Families are the most shamanic thing there is. They are your first initiators into pain, suffering, love, beauty, joy, distress, addiction, whatever. It's all of it. And family of origin, if we don't know our family of origin and accept it and deal with it and see how it's still affecting us today, then we're just wanting to escape.
Mm-hmm.
The third initiation is the shadow. And that is for every one of us to be able to recognize our shadows,
Mm-hmm.
our various shadows, not just a shadow, but our shadows,
Right.
and to embrace that shadow and to befriend it and how to work with it, and so that it doesn't sneak up on us and have us doing things that we don't want to do, that's disastrous for ourselves and for others.
Mm-hmm.
And that turns into the collective shadow that we're experiencing right now.
Yes.
The fourth initiation is the beloved, which is about embracing whatever is your greater, I don't call it a higher power, I call it your greater power. Whatever is your greater power. Whether you see it as yourself or great mystery or a deity or God or goddess or an archetype or the spirit of love, how to work with the energies of love like Rumi did.
Okay.
And the beloved. The fifth initiation is, having come through these other initiations, preparing yourself to fully step into your sacred purpose and beginning to allow that to come through and fully own whatever it might be. And see how you've already in your life known what your sacred purpose, and how everything in your life has been guiding you constantly, and kind of like a potter's wheel or like a sculpture, moving things out of your way to get you closer to what it is yours to be and to do. And the sixth initiation, which was one I only added a few years ago, is because it was 5 for many years, but this one just came so powerfully, and it's about the imaginal cells, cells, that live inside the caterpillar, that becomes the butterfly, but also that scientists now say we all possess, and that these imaginal cells already possess our future self and know what it is, and that we can download, we learn how through processes and journeys like shamanic breathwork to download our imaginal cells and upgrade. We can then become our future self now. We don't have to wait for evolution. So those are 6 ship initiations. And before a person can become a shamanic breathwork facilitator, we want them to have those initiations so they can be grounded in themselves and in these initiations before they are able to take this work out into the world.
Oh, sure. And how long does that take to reach that final level?
It depends. We have different, we have accelerated courses that people can jump in. Last year we did a month long. We had about 40 people go through a month long, and they went through all 6 initiations and the breathwork training in that month long. And many of those people are out now in Berlin, Paris, Bali, England, Guatemala, all over the place, offering shamanic breathworks now. Australia. We've been offering trainings for 23 years, but we did that month long last year. It was wonderful. This year, we're doing it in 2 weeks. So people can come and do 2 weeks. And this is the first level of training where you can go out and do breath work, and where you, can breathe individuals or, do your own groups and things like that. We have advanced trainings beyond that, but I don't think we really need to go into that right now.
No, that's fine. No, I just wanted people to hear exactly what, like when you're talking time, is it a year course? I wasn't sure what it was.
Yeah. Well, there is another way to do it. We have, because we've been around now, we have about 16 what we call congregations, because we're a nonprofit spiritual organization. We have 16 organizations that are part of us called congregations, and they're around the country, and some of them are out of the country. And you can go and do SHIP. You can't do the shamanic breathwork skills, but you can do SHIP, the 6 initiations, with those congregations.
Oh,
and so, like, for instance, I'm going this coming weekend, and I'm going to be a special guest there for a congregation to help them kick off their first SHIP weekend in San Antonio. So they'll be doing 5 weekends over a year. And so what they'll do in those 5 weekends is what we do in 2 weeks at our intensives.
Wow. So the final result for these people after they go through all that, can you tell them what did they get? What did the people get? Now I understand, but I want you to, do you mind?
Sure. When people finish the 6 initiations, and I will tell you that some people come through that mainly for their own healing and transformation. They're not particularly thinking that they're going through it to become a facilitator. They don't want to have to go to a hospital. They don't want to go to the psych unit. They don't want to have to go to treatment. They don't want to have to go to a therapist. Wonderful. They want to come and go through these initiations, and that's what they do for their own healing intensive. We've had some people go through it more than once for that, which has been great. We've had families go through it. So as I said, you can go at weekends, or you can go through a month long, or you can go through 2 week long. So that's when you go through the SHIP program itself, you're getting your own, what I learned, if I was going to help others heal, I needed to heal.
Yes.
So you're getting your own initiatory experiences for your own healing. And you're doing breath work. You're learning breath work. When you come through the skills training, you're still learning, you're still practicing your SHIP initiations, but you're focused on the skills of what it takes and what it looks like to set up a breathwork practice, to work with people, how to, we do hands-on healing with people, how to put together music. There's a lot of different components, how to process people and help them to integrate the work. Also, when you finish your SHIP program, this is the SHIP program, the initiations, if you complete that program successfully, then you have the opportunity through our organization to be ordained as a shamanic minister. And we were the only people who, how should I say this? Several years back, it's been a while now, I think it was 2005, may have been a little earlier, we became the organization that ordains people as shamanic ministers. So other people may call themselves a shamanic minister, but we're the only ones who, through the government, ordain people as shamanic ministers for their shamanic ministry. Wow. So you have the opportunity to be, as I say, a bona fide shamanic minister.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I mean, it's so great for people to know that this is here for them to heal in another way. Like you say, they don't have to go to a hospital or treatment center or whatever. Go to SHIP. Get those initiations, be willing to put yourself out there to get the healing that you need without having to, go the other route, the old route, which could be, years of medication. It could be whatever. Yeah. And this can let go of all that. Of course, the big hang up with a lot of people is they want to be pro insurance. And, this kind of program probably is not, correct?
No, it's not. But you probably know this. I don't know how much you know, but around this, having worked in the addictions field and where people are now with addictions, it's very hard still to get insurance to pay.
Absolutely.
For most treatment centers. And even so, you frequently come out still with a $10,000 or a $15,000 or a $20,000 bill that's yours to pay. Yeah. I'll just throw this in here really quickly. Yeah. Occasionally people come through our programs. I'll do this very quick, but occasionally people come through our programs, and about week 2 of the program, we can see that they've got an addiction problem going on or something else. And that's natural because a lot of people who have addiction actually are closet healers, that haven't come into their own power and just need to find their own healing. There's a chapter in my shamanic breathwork book called The Shadow and the Shaman. And it says the difference between an addict and a shaman is sobriety. And so frequently people who are wounded are shamans. They're wounded healers. And so when people come through, for instance, we had a month long last year. We had 40 people that went through. At the end of that time, there were 6 people in that program who came to us and said, we need deeper healing. So we put together an extra 10 days for them at the end to do what we call Transformation House. Several times a year, we run a program called Transformation House that people can come to as long as they're already detoxed, if it's substances, as long as they're already detoxed.
Right.
If it's not substances, it doesn't, obviously that doesn't have to go through detox. But they can come to us for problems that they might normally go someplace else. And we have a staff that will work with them at my retreat center in North Carolina. And they can come, and we have a host staff that will work with them for approximately 2 weeks at about a third of the cost.
Sure. And that's so important for people to hear, that there's so many alternatives that are so much safer and so much more loving. I mean, you've got all the support there that you're giving them. And I think this is just a beautiful opportunity for people to know that you are there. So thank you for sharing all that. And I know we're going over a little. So I wanted to just ask you one last question. Do you have a message for our audience of 2019? You know, do you have anything you want to share that you think is important for them to know, something urgent or important, whatever you feel is needed to be heard to the people?
You know, I always pay attention to what affects me. And because I've found that, you know, I really believe in the consciousness that we're really all one, you know, one consciousness expressing itself. And we're really not that different, no matter what external differences it can look like in any way. We're really not that different deep down. We all want the same things, I think. You know, even if somebody's deeply disturbed, I'd say my friend of mine is a psychiatrist, and he came through my programs years ago. And I was just speaking to him the other night, and he's working as an amazing job. He's working as a psychiatrist right now in a prison, and in the Bay Area that's mainly maximum security, you know, and most of the people are there for life for really horrendous crimes. And we were talking about how those the people and their needs and their pain and their suffering and their hopes and their fears and their spirituality, because he's really geared towards not just being a regular psychiatrist, but a shamanic psychiatrist, closeted, you know, still want the same things. And we were, you know, I was crying over Thai food, you know, in the restaurant, hearing him speak about someone who was a mass murderer that he was working with and the compassion he had for him. And this man who's finding his heart, and, you know, and you know, I know that people will raise their eyebrows around that and feel skeptical, but I hear it. I understand it. You know, but for the grace of God go I. You know, yeah, this is how I feel about it. And so to me, you know, what is this about? Why am I speaking about this when you ask me this question? It's because, and I may cry at this point, but
it's a lot.
I feel deeply compassionate for our world right now. I was listening to that song the other night. It says, look at the old one from the 60s, look at Mother Nature on the run in the 1970s. You know, Mother Nature's on the run. And Mother Nature includes all of us. It includes every human being. It includes every animal. It includes every forest, every river, every creature that lives beneath the sea. It includes our atmosphere. It includes the breath of the trees as they struggle to breathe. As human beings have to check the air quality in many places to step out of their houses, that people have to have filters on their water. Most potable water is gone. You know, I believe that it's no small thing to say that the most important thing right now is our relationship with nature. And that nature is our human nature, it's our animal nature, it's our spiritual nature, it's the physical nature around us, and our direct relationship to each other as a flock, as a tribe, as a pack, you know, that we're all related, as it says, many of the Native Americans in certain traditions, especially in the Southwest, would say, Omatakwiase, or something to that effect. We are all related, all my relations. This is, I believe, the year 2019, from going from self-centeredness to truly being centered in the self, and remembering that self and how it's connected to all the other selves, and remembering our shamanic nature. Our shamanic nature is to care deeply about what happens to other people's children in this country or at the border or any place else. To care deeply about what happens in Yemen. To care deeply what happens in Africa. To care deeply what's happening to our neighbor next door. And all around this country, regardless of our differences. And we see that more and more and more. And so I want to encourage all of us to not isolate ourselves and not protect ourselves. So, oh, I'm too sensitive. I'm too empathetic, or I'm too much of an empath. I can't, I'm too sensitive. I take care of ourselves. Do what we need to do to be as strong of mind and consciousness and heart. But this is not a time to be willy-nilly and to be in a weakened state. You look at Steve Hawking, and his body is falling apart, and the strength of his mind, and the strength of his message. Wherever we are, whatever our own personal struggles are, I have them, you have them, we all have them.
Yes, we do.
It's important for us at this time to practice empathy and compassion and a sense of otherness. This really is the age of Aquarius, and that's not just a new agey, statement and to be in spiritual bypass. If we blow this, it will be because we lacked love. Self-love that we then poured out into the world. So I would say, in the year of 2019, for all of us, it's a time to transform ourselves, to get our acts together, and to help the world transform itself back into a more harmonious balance.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. So important. I feel that so greatly. Thank you for that. Beautiful. And that is my reason for having this show. I mean, self-love is important because in my mind, that's a start. If you don't love yourself, how do you love others? So you've got to start there and then give it out. When you feel that you're full enough, you can give back now and share it. And then it just keeps expanding, and we just change everything the more we do that. And that's why this kind of sharing that you've shared today is so important for people to hear. All the things that you offer to them is so important for them to know it's available, because there'll be a lot of people listening who may never have ever heard of what you do. And this is so important that they hear. And that's why I'm doing this. So people will hear about people like you. And thank you. Thank you for that. So I know you have oh, thank you too. So thank you for, I know you have a beautiful gift to share. I'd love you to just briefly, give a little share on what you are giving as your gift to the public watching us, the group.
So a couple of years ago, I wrote a book, and I've written or co-authored 10 books now. I'm getting ready to co-author a couple of more. Wow. I love doing that. I've done some of my own, but I also have loved working with other amazing shamanic women primarily. And one of the books that I co-authored with my co-author, Nita Gay, she also happens to be my best friend. We did a book called Soul Whispering. Oh, wow. And between the two of us, we figure we have about 80 years of experience, because we've both been therapists for about 40 years. So, or so. So there's a lot of good information in that book. But in the end of that book, and it's also online now, are some PDFs and some downloads that people can tap into. And there's a journey in there. There's a Nana's journey, which is about the goddess that goes into the underworld and then who comes back from the underworld, having learned about herself, and brings more love and consciousness to the planet as she regains who she is at a higher octave. There's some information and an imagery on and guided journey on how to work with the shadow. And let's see, there were several there. Let's see which ones we've got here for you. There is the neuro-imaginal journey and the creature teacher journey, and contacting your future self and turning the light on your shadow. Wow. So all of those are being offered, and they'll be on the website link that you offer to people. Yes. And they're absolutely free. And we hope that people take those journeys and enjoy them. And we'd love to hear from you. And you can always go to my Facebook page. And now we have a brand new page, a Venus Rising Association for Transformation page. And people can go on there. And you go on my personal page, which is Starwolf. And I'm always happy to see what you have to say about those things.
Oh, thank you. That's a beautiful gift. And it's such a meaningful gift to help people get on this path. They try those and they're going to have an idea of what it is you offer, and then where do they want to go? That is a choice. So I would love our audience to tell us how much they love this show and enjoyed what they heard, and we'd love any feedback you can give us. So please email us and let us know. Starwolf will let her know. Everyone will. We love to read your emails. And Star, I want to thank you so much for being the luminous awakener to the people you are in their inner shaman, which I call owning your divine light. And you've given so many opportunities of learning and growing to the people and making available to the seekers. You're a bridge of divine light. That's how I see you. And thank you so much. And so appreciate everything you've shared today. And I know you have so much more to give, but this was just so perfect for today. And thank you again. And I'm Janet Miller, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Wow.